Mike?
Buongiorno.
Yeah.
It's working. Fantastic. And I don't have to have this because I don't like the walk-around mics because I tend to wander around quite a lot. I better introduce myself. My name is Mike Hobday. I'm Chief Executive of AntWorks, a company focused on intelligent document processing and how AI is transforming the way in which we can start to truly deliver end-to-end digitization by addressing data at the very beginning. Oh, thank you very much. Yes, I do need one of those, don't I? Could have been a bit boring otherwise. So let's crack on, right? So I thought, here I am in Milan, and I've just followed Pat Geary, so I thought, talk a little bit about Blue Prism, and pizza would be a good place to start. So before I joined AntWorks, going back, oh, is that my water? No, thank you very much. Thank you. I'll put that down there in case I need it. So I thought I'd talk a bit about Blue Prism and my past and pizza. So I started my automation journey probably 5 or 6 years ago when I was general manager at IBM for intelligent automation. And way back in the beginning, this is in the prehistoric era, before UiPath and Automation Anywhere had emerged, I was working with Blue Prism. And I built a team in IBM in London who didn't have a lot of work at the time because the market was starting and it was Christmas. So I set them the task, go and create something with Blue Prism. And what they did was they decided that they would build a robot which would take a spreadsheet of all of the data around how the pizzas they wanted, the sides, the drinks, and all of that in a spreadsheet, and they quickly, in a couple of days, configure the Blue Prism robot to take that data, go to a website, order pizza, and the pizza would arrive in 20 minutes. And it was fantastic, because you could actually film them doing the coding, running the robot, and the pizza actually arriving at the office. Fantastic. Used that, a video of that, and it started the journey for automation at one of the UK's largest banks. And that's how my journey started with Blue Prism and then UiPath and Automation Anywhere, which was a really exciting and valuable journey. And what was great was people quickly understood what the power of robotic process automation was. And I took it. It was almost like a drug, right? It's got to be good. I can go and sell this to every client in every industry. But there was something nagging there, because I started to think about it. And what was I doing? I was taking data from that spreadsheet, and I was assuming that data was right. The data, the spreadsheet that had the pizza orders, the sides, and the drinks. And as I was assuming that that data was correct, and it was actually the orders that my team actually wanted. And what I was doing was speeding up the process of the movement of data from one place to another. And what was I really doing? I was just making old processes run faster. And okay, I was reducing cost, always a good thing. But what I was really doing was making, when I looked at the big banks and big car companies I was working, I was taking these monolithic organizations, these dinosaurs, and I was just making them run faster. Maybe a bit cheaper, maybe a bit slimmer, but essentially my job was making dinosaurs run faster. It wasn't transformation. It wasn't delivering the new digital enterprise. And what I started to think was actually RPA on its own, and RPA in conjunction with legacy systems, is not digital transformation. It's about taking 20th century processes and making them run faster. And what we in this room, if you're involved in change, whether it's in a vendor perspective or whether you're running change in an organization, our jobs are to protect our enterprise, take cost out, improve performance. Absolutely, it's a good thing to make your dinosaur run faster, but ultimately, the climate is changing. And ultimately, you need to transform the organization end to end. So you need to be doing other things. Don't rely on RPA as some sort of transformational tool. And this is where the pharaohs come in, is because my concern was the reality with what we were doing with automation before it got intelligent was we were embalming our 20th century processes. It was a Tutankhamun moment, right, which was great. But actually, certainly my vision for my career was to get involved with the next generation. And I started to think about the world. And Pat mentioned it. He talked about OCR and the journey and how that was kind of important. Actually, I think it's hugely important. I was on a plane, obviously from London, and I filled in not only did I do my online forms, but I filled in 2 forms, which were terrible forms, on the plane with my own handwriting, and handed them in, as did everyone on the plane. So anyone who thinks that the world is digital is wrong. And in fact, I was on a conference recently, and obviously a virtual one, and there was a director of a very large company saying, I don't know why we're talking about digital transformation, because we're all digital already. I had to pause, really, because every organization, there are millions and millions of pages being generated of unstructured data, handwriting, emails, invoices, contracts. And unless we start to address that, we can never go digital. We can just take the data that some human has transferred into a spreadsheet or a system and then use robotic process automation to move it around. And of course, paper, we don't have lots of paper, do we? Because actually we have images of paper, but it's just the same. So that's why I joined AntWorks, because we have something called CMR Plus, which over the last, 12 months, certainly since the halfway through the pandemic, there's been a lot of interest in how can we address the issues around paper. Because there are organizations that had hundreds of people coming into the office during the pandemic because they couldn't send the images of documents to their homes because their homes didn't have the right bandwidth or the documents were too sensitive. And so it's become an issue. So the drive towards addressing this problem is coming not just from can I reduce cost, but can I improve my operational efficiency and reduce operational risk. So these are the kinds of forms that we try, in the 40 years ago when we invented optical character recognition, 40 years ago we had this stuff. We decided actually the way to get things done was to take font recognition and make sure that people wrote really, really clearly and precisely within a square so that we could see it, right? And that allowed a breakthrough in that we could start to automate and digitize the data being provided. Fine, but actually most organizations, it's only about 5% or 10% of the documents coming into the organization. It doesn't address the emails. It doesn't address the majority of even things like invoices coming in. And you'll have noticed here vet fees is one of them. So what I thought I'd do is talk about one of our use cases for a large insurance company in the United States. So what they wanted to do was they realized that when you saw before vets had it suggested that there was a form that all vets filled in very accurately. Well, it's not true, right? When vets submit their invoices, they have their own. They're a bit like doctors, and they're all different. And therefore, you can't create templates, OCR tiles templates, for every single different veterinary surgery in the United States. So this client wanted to do that differently. He wanted to use AI, intelligent document processing, to see whether that would open up new opportunities for cost reduction. So what we did, we obviously used CMR in that cognitive machine reading in that context. But what we were able to show that we could take an invoice and we could quickly take out the vet's name and address. We could take out the dog's name, the breed, the owner's name. We could take out the individual drug treatments and the cost and the total cost and the tax on each invoice. And we could do that in a way that actually, obviously, you could achieve some straight-through processing to paying the vet. But actually what they realized was this isn't about cost reduction, because before we only captured the data as vet, customer number, and the invoice payment and paid it. No, what we could now take was that detail about the vet. We could actually understand the dog's name and the breed. We could see the disease or treatment that they got and the cost of it. And we could use other data to understand whether in that area, is this the best vet at the lowest price to deal with a dog with this breed at this cost? And so you could start to provide added value services in relation to that, that data. You could use that data to drive new value-added services for your clients. But equally, you could take that richness of data and put it into real time into your underwriting systems, and therefore start to generate new value from that data and improve your pricing for pet treatment. And that's the opportunity that lies in addressing and grabbing the data that sits in all of our organizations. So very quickly, let me talk a little bit about how intelligent document processing works. Now, I'm very short-sighted. In fact, I can barely see your faces. I've always had this problem, right? And the way I look at AI, I don't like all this complex stuff because I'm a very simple person. What we're trying to do is emulate how a human looks at stuff. It's not about the position of data on a page or within a box. That's not how the brain works. So if you take this, for example, you can probably all read, it says AntWorks, Intelligent Document Processing. It might get a bit harder down the bottom for you. But if you think about what this means, so you could infer lots of things from this data. First off, you can say, well, it's an eye test. So there's something about this that is related to optical capability or sight capability, so you could draw that from it. You could go, yes, it's funny how the brain goes, it's not a word, right? So OCR would find it very difficult to go, AntWorks, Intelligent Document Processing. You wouldn't see that as a natural structure, but the brain works out very quickly that there is something, it's actually saying something. And also it's about context. So Mike's up here from AntWorks. So I'm actually expecting you to say AntWorks. And the other thing is about how the mind works when it can't read. So is anybody here short-sighted? Anybody got glasses? Put your hand up. Nobody got glasses. Nobody had an eye. Oh, there's somebody down here who's had an eye test, right? Well, when you go and have an eye test, and I'm typical like this, you see, if I get to this level, I'm finding it very hard to read. And what the brain starts to kick in, and it'll go, it tries to eliminate noise, what we call pre-processing from a technology point of view. It goes, actually, things in the middle are actually more noisy because it's got letters on either side. So I'll pick up the eye, because actually, although I find it very difficult, actually when I look at it and move around, actually it does look rather straight, must be an eye. Or over here it goes, it's round. So it's either a D, a 0, or a Q. So there's not a straight bit down there, but it does seem to be flat there. And then some of the brain goes, it's a D. So in a way, what the brain's doing is taking it and trying to move around and position the document in a way in which it can actually read the text. And that, for us, is about pre-processing. But I want to try to get across, this is not about font recognition. This is about all of the context that an image, which happens to have text in, the brain actually automatically picks up without you having to think very much about it. So this is how our product really works. I actually think this is the digital worker. And you'll find, something's happened down there, but RPA is very much down at the bottom. What we're trying to do with our CMR Plus solution is say exactly how the human works. It goes, I can take images of documents, I can take digital text, PDFs, in whether they're readable or not, email, handwriting, logos, signature, barcodes. I can absorb all of those with a set of features. And I'm training my solution to understand, to be able to recognize that there's a certain style of document. So if I get a document which is a contract, that if it's got certain features, even though they're all different, it's this sort of contract. It's a bit like if you were training to be an underwriter and you come from university and you go in for your first day, you sit next to a senior underwriter and they show you lots of insurance policies, although they're all different, but after a couple of days, you'd recognize an insurance document if it was a pile on the desk across the way. So that's what our solution is doing. It's being presented with a document and it's recognizing it, it's indexing it, it's saying, I understand what it is. So once I understand what it is, I can then extract data. And we've got a number of tools, AI and OCR, all sorts of things going on there, which means that I can extract the data and train our solution to extract key information, key values that you want from the document. And that document could be 1 page, could be 150 pages long. And as I say, whether it's structured or unstructured or semi-structured, doesn't matter. Once we've extracted it, we can actually enrich the data. So if we've extracted information from an invoice, we can use RPA or our APIs to go out to, for example, an asset store, bring the data back and say, yeah, we've got the asset that the invoice relates to. And then there's confidence. So having got all the data, we say, actually, are we confident that the quality of the image was good enough and we're happy with it or not? And is it enough for them to go to our decision engine, which defines actually what should happen next? And then straight through, or an API platform to execute the transaction or put the data now in structured form into your back-end systems. So that's and then of course the back-end, important learning, just as we do. So when we, as humans, when we do something, and we later find out we made a mistake, we need to understand the mistake we made and have that data come back to us, and that's where we have our machine learning feedback loop. And of course, up there in the brain, we have our experience, so if we're seeing that actually we're uncertain, that's going to a human in the loop for quality control. So here's some examples of taking a document, cleaning it up, that's what I call pre-processing, and then extracting the data into structured form. And I think if I press this, oh, here we go. Here's an example of it happening. Taking a document as the human would, straightening it up, cleaning out all of the stuff that makes the noise, bringing out the data, and putting it into structured form. And because it's in our solution in a structured way, we can then extract that data and put it into any file format that you might like, into a document store you might like, and then you can have RPA or, as they, an API links to take that data and integrate to your back-end systems. I'll let it finish. And the team on the stand can take you through this. They're up there on the left, or will be, if I can see them down here. That'd be great. So that's a simple process. I'm going to play a very quick video about what we're doing in the insurance space, which is actually using our solution to take 2 documents, in this case 2 insurance policies, and actually compare them. So I'll quickly run this, if I may, for you.
Every day, the world's insurance offices spend hours reviewing policies, manually. Employees get policies by email. They're printed and compared, manually. Errors and differences are marked, manually. These are then uploaded to the document management system. And there's more. A letter's created highlighting the differences and sent to the carrier. It's complicated and time-consuming. AntWorks AI eliminates manual, cutting policy review time from 2 hours to 15 minutes. How does it work? Easy. Documents are sent from the insurer and taken in by AntWorks CMR. Once processed, the source document and policy are displayed side by side for final review using the easy-to-navigate checklist. The system creates a summary and flags any discrepancies to the carrier. Documents and data are all then stored in the policy management system. Quick, efficient, accurate. AntWorks AI streamlines and automates your policy review processes. Your people focus on clients instead. Happy colleagues, happy clients. You unlock valuable data to support better decision-making. Fewer errors and omissions, better business and operational processes. It's more efficient and you save money. And you can do all this in multiple languages.
So this is a solution that we're working with one of the world's largest brokers to construct, and amongst other sets of projects, including simply extracting data from policies from multiple carriers in multiple languages, as it says. We're looking to process upwards of 100 million pages a year. So where we're moving as a company is to develop our solution and make it industrial grade for very large scale processing. And that's very much our ambition, and we're working with clients today to deliver that for them. So let's have a look, see what's next. So I wanted to kind of like pick up on this idea of digital workers again, right? Because it's what struck me when I entered my automation journey. And I think it goes back to that chart that you saw with the head and the data, and then the link to RPA and APIs in the neck, if you remember, right? What it was saying really was, when you're trying to automate human work, there's an awful lot that goes on in the head. And RPA and APIs are all things about the connectors that sit in the brainstem, the bit just at the bottom of the brain, that converts that thinking into action. So the important thing about automation is to address the data at the point at which it comes into your organization. And you imagine, if you've got a solution like AntWorks, where you're getting 85, 90%, 95% accuracy, depending on the quality of your documents, and you've got a human in the loop who's picking up things and looking for errors, and you've got machine learning loops coming back from downstream processes. So it's important to think about our product in the context of your wider estate and processes. Then if you've got 95% confidence in your data, say, and today, if you think about people doing routine work, taking data from complex documents and typing it into their machines and doing it repetitively day after day after day, I bet you there's a mistake in every single document if they're pulling out multiple data, right? And your accuracy, overall accuracy levels are probably 60 or 70%, but your organization's got used to it. And maybe a lot of that data you don't end up using anyway. So if you imagine a world in which you could get to close to 95% accuracy, what would that mean for the way you design your processes? Because I bet an awful lot of the low-hanging fruit where robotic process automation is being applied is in reconciliation. But if you've got your confidence in your data, you don't need that reconciliation. You're automating a 20th century unnecessary process. And that's what I mean about embalming your processes. So think about it, and if you think about the way in which if you're being asked to provide digital leadership, then you need to start thinking about data. So back to this chart. Well, what I've shown you essentially is a digital underwriter. So this is the work that someone is doing, sitting and comparing complex documents, pulling out data as a matter of routine. But this is someone who is likely to be paid north of $150,000 a day. Oh, yeah, sorry, minimum day. That would be rather impressive. 150,000. So this is a high-value worker doing routine work because you need to be well-trained to find the data. So we're automating that, and along with, I think, I'm not quite sure which RPA platform it is. It might be Blue Prism or UiPath. Is actually providing the transactional data flows downstream. But essentially, a combination of APIs, RPA, and our solution creates a digital underwriter, taking away that hour and 3/4 work that was referred to on the previous chart. But equally, an insurance policy is just a contract. So creating a digital worker that reviews contracts, leases, is not impossible. Email agents, taking documents and doing sentiment analysis. What actually is sentiment analysis? All it is taking out, these are negative words, so, and then applying a rule that says if they're negative words, it must be that they're unhappy. Let's cut let's cut it. And our solution does all of that. That's fine, because we can apply any rule that says when you see certain patterns of language, we take a meaning from it, which is converted by our decision engine in our tool. So email agents, the pet insurance clerk, I've already explained, and digital content manager looking at what's on your website and trawling through that, and actually, and even trawling through other people's websites and taking data. And we've been doing that in the health industry. So hopefully that gives you a kind of like a different perspective on digital workers. So I think I'm going to leave you with the thought then that what my transformation, and I thank a good friend, Jesus Mantis at IBM, for pointing out to me that all I was doing was moving data around. and that I needed to focus on the data. And I think that transformed my thinking. And what I truly believe now is if you're looking to drive transformation in your organization, and that will include, and I'm not here to say RPA is a bad thing at all, I don't want anyone to take that away. RPA is part of your journey, but start thinking about your processes as they are in the 20th century, and start to think about how data moves through your organization and gets interfered with by humans. And my key message is when you're doing transformation, what you need to do is not go around replacing people, but think about where do people need to touch my process and add value to it. Add value to the customer, reduce the risk in my organization, improve the performance of my organization and manage it. Because an awful lot of people get involved in your processes and actually interfere with it and create variance. So start from the point of view is, what's the outcome I want to drive? What's the input? How can people really add value to the future of my business? Thank you very much.